Yeah, I mean, we're talking real life. We're talking to real people about real things, discussing real problems, coming up with real solutions. This is our life. This is my life. This is real life. I'm excited about the word here tonight. If you have your Bibles, I want you to go with me to 2 Kings chapter 5. You're going to work with my voice here. It's been a long weekend already, a lot of screaming. I preached to the women this morning, and my voice was just like, it was going out on me, but I'm going to be able to get this out. I want you to go to 2 Kings. I want you to go to chapter 5. And I want you to look at something here. This is a very interesting a story, and I wanted to be able to minister this. I've just been reading this over and over again, and I've read this particular story. I've read this story over and over again, but I wanted to be able to extract some things from this to be able to get you some information that I think is going to be impactful and very needed. Now it says, now Naaman, capital of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man. That's an important part. He was a great man with his master and honorable, because by him Jehovah had given victory unto Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, because he was but he says he was a mighty man of valor, which is also very important, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out in bands and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maiden, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, would that my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, then he would recover him of his leprosy. So just here very quickly, Naaman is a great commander. In fact, he is so great in the country of Syria, in the nation of Syria, that even the king respected him. And it says that by God Jehovah, he was able to help Syria to gain victory over Israel. And we know that through countless times throughout the Old Testament, that whenever Israel found themselves in disobedience to God, that God would allow for their enemies to tame them. But if you'll notice, as we continue to read through this and as we go through this, even though they tame Israel, they never get an opportunity to tame God. And we're going to see this here. Now, it says, and one went in, and he told his Lord, saying, this is Ammon going and telling the Lord, this young maiden that I have captured after war, she's now told me about this prophet that is back in Israel, saying, thus and thus said the maiden that is in the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, go now, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 changes of raiment or clothing. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, and now when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he ripped his clothes. And he said, am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man does send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? But consider, I pray you, and see how he seeks a quarrel against me. Basically, Naaman has went to the king of he's gone to the king of Syria and said, this woman told me about a prophet back in Israel. So Naaman goes and takes a letter from the king of Syria to the king of Israel and says, here's the letter. And in the letter, it reads that you have a responsibility to cure my great commander of his disease of leprosy. This is very important. You have to understand this, that the nation of Israel was defeated. So the king of Israel, he tears his clothes because he's like, you've already defeated me. Am I God? What else do you want from me? I already feel defeated as it is. You ever been in that place where you felt defeated as it was, and then you just felt like more people wanted to just defeat or take more away from you? Let's keep going though. It says, and as it was so, when Elisha the man of God heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariots, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. That is ultimate disrespect. I'm a great commander. I'm a great commander. And here you are, a prophet, and you send your assistant to give me a message. He says, but Naaman was wroth, or he was so mad, he was so angry. And he went away and said, behold, I thought he shall surely come out to me. I thought he was at least man enough to come and face me. And stand and call on the name of Jehovah his God, and wave his hand over the place and recover the leper. Naaman's like, I thought when I went to him, I thought it was going to be very easy. He just came right out, he just waved, and I was healed. That's it. Just one magic fix. This is what we all want, right? We just want one magic fix. Just God, you just kind of fix it. It says, but are not the rivers of Damascus better than the waters of Israel? Why should I go dip 7 times in the waters of Israel? Why would I want to go dip in defeated waters? The waters that we have back in Damascus are much better than the rivers that you have here. Why would I want to go dip in this? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in rage. And his servants came near and spake to him, saying, and said, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much rather then when he says to thee, wash and be clean, a simple thing. Then he went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Now again, this is a great story of a great man, O Naaman. It starts off by telling that he was a mighty warrior. So mighty that even the king respected him. Naaman, he epitomizes the place of the place that we try to get to. I mean, you have to think, he is the great commander. Biblical historians and scholars go on to say that it was because of the arrow and the sword of Naaman that Israel fell into the captivity of Syria. That now Israel was able to fall because Naaman because he was so great at what he did. And he was a great man. And that's that place of that we all aspire to get to. That place of greatness. That place of having what we need, maybe more than what we need. That place of having all the things that we want. You have to think, you're a great warrior. I'm quite confident that Naaman probably had people who at any moment's notice, at a snap of his fingers, they would probably bow down at his feet. I mean, you got to think a man who was so respected at what he did that even the king revered and respected him. This is not just some normal man. This is a great and mighty warrior. But there's something about him. He has leprosy. He has leprosy. In order for you to understand the context of what kind of disease this man had, you'd have to understand the Levitical law, which stated that the priest had a great responsibility to check all those men who had this disease of leprosy. And if it was so bad, then the people who had leprosy, they were now sent away. This skin disease, they were now sent away as outcasts to live in a village all to themselves. So you got to think, a great man who stands alone in himself because of his own abilities. He's not so great when he goes home into the private chambers of his own home, and he realizes after he takes off his shield, and after he puts down his sword, and after he takes off his robe, and after he removes his armor, that he is not as great as what everyone thinks he is. Because this great man is hiding something. Oh, that we are men, that we are public heroes, but we still have private problems. A great man. A great man. But yet there is still something about me that you don't know that I struggle with deeply, that I struggle with daily. And if this were to get out to the people, maybe they will not respect me or revere me in the way in which I hope they would, because I'm the pastor. And if they were to know that I had leprosy, then they maybe would not want to touch me. Maybe they would not want to shout my name out as I walk through the street. Maybe at a drop of a dime, maybe they wouldn't be able to just bow down and worship at my feet, because they would know that I'm not as great as what they think they are. So I have to try to hide the sores, and I have to try to hide the stench of what is coming and reeking from my body, because I don't want other people to know that although I am a public hero to everybody else, I have a private problem. This was Naaman's issue. Now, Naaman was willing to allow for this young maiden, this young girl, to at least see his leprosy. This is how this young girl, this is how she knew that he had leprosy. And thank God for this young maiden. She wasn't even significant enough that she had a name, but yet she was significant enough to be able to give a man an answer. And she says to his wife, it would be good if he would at least go to Israel, because there is a prophet there who could heal this man of his leprosy. And isn't it something that anytime a man, if you understand anything of greatness, and if you yourself consider yourself to be a great man, you can only imagine the great lengths that you will go through to try to hide or try to cover up or try to heal that thing that you don't want to show to everybody else. He did not just go empty-handed. This great commander went with a letter from the king. Not only that, but he also took gold, he took silver, and he took a change of clothes. This man was willing to take what he knew what was needed to take out to make sure that he can at least stand before the prophet to see if the prophet could wave his hand magically, and then all of a sudden God could heal him of his leprosy. This man was a public hero, man, but he had a private problem. And God knew this about this man. Now remember now, God allowed for them to conquer Israel. But even though they were allowed to conquer the people, they could never conquer God. That God always had a plan. And the plan that he had was to put this young woman, even though it was in captivity, that she was in a foreign land, serving a foreign woman in a foreign house, she still had a great responsibility. And in the submission and in the humility of her own voice, she speaks a word that now goes to help this great commander and says, you should go to my country. Now, he gets there. The king is upset. The king is mad. Am I God? Who do you think I am that I can heal you of your disease? You've already defeated me. Now you come to rub it in my face? I don't care that you have leprosy. Who do you think you are? So the prophet overhears it and says, oh, don't worry about it, king. I'll take care of it. Tell him to come to my house. This great commander walks up to Elisha's house. But Elisha doesn't even come out to him. He says, I'll just send out my servant and I'll give you a word. He hears it. And he gets angry. Every time I read that, I knew there was something that was much deeper in that word that I could not see. Why would he get angry at something that was so simple if he was especially looking for healing? Because you were telling a great commander who was powerful in his own land to go to a foreign country that he had defeated. And now you are telling him, and the fact is you won't even come out as the prophet to tell this great commander the instructions that he should have. But now I hear the instructions, and the instructions that you want me to have, you want me to go and dip down in dirty, nasty water. It's not even the fact that it's dirty. It's not even the fact that it's muddy. It is the fact that you want me to dip down in waters in a defeated country. I defeated this. I'm a great commander. Even God should just wave his hand. Come out here, prophet. Wave your hand at me. Do you not know who I am? I'm a public hero. But I have a private problem. His soldiers, which is so amazing. You should always keep level, sober-minded men around you to remind you that you are not as high and mighty as what you think you are. His soldiers say to him, bruh. Now, I could have imagined if he would ask you a difficult thing. But he asked you something that was real simple, bruh. Just go dip in the waters. Could you not just, it's a simple thing. He just told you to go dip in the waters. I could see if he told you to do a very difficult thing. I could see if he gave you a whole equation, like, you need to run up Mount Carmel. You need to do a backflip and do bear crawls. He didn't tell you to do any of that. All he told you to do was just go dip in the water. So Naaman goes, and he dips down once, twice, dips. Number 6, that number of flesh, that number of human, realizing in his own human ability that he could not do it on his own. But he dipped down a 7th time, and he came back up, and he was healed. I've heard many sermons where the preacher ended it right there. And the preacher spoke about the healing power of God and how the leprosy, how it was removed and in the number of completion after the number of human failure. But yet there was something that was so great about this moment, that God took this great figure, this public hero, realized he had a private problem, and God took him into a foreign land that he defeated, and he made him do something that was so important. But before I even get to that, after he dipped down in the water and after he was cleansed, it wasn't so much of the exterior or the outward skin disease that he was cleansed of. Oh, Naaman wasn't just cured of his exterior, but Naaman was also cured within, because he finally realized that, oh, your God Jehovah is the true God. And the gods that I'm worshiping over in Syria, they are not the true gods. And isn't it something that God will do? He'll do his greatest work to knock down those doors, to tear down the lies, so he can come after the men of influence, because he knows that the influence that you yield, once he grabs you, you can grab all those who follow you. God was able to change a whole nation, even though they thought, I've defeated his. But God had this public hero to go and take a dip down in dirty, nasty water. And I wondered, why in the world would Naaman get angry when the prophet tells him, go dip? And I could only deduce this down to one main reason. He gets angry because there's a lot of reasons why a lot of us get angry when we're told we should do different things to possibly help that private problem that we have. It is because as men, we have this issue with pride that says, I'm bigger than what you are trying to recommend I do. Do you know who I am? At least in my own mind, I know who I am. I'm a public hero. I'm not just a hero just to the people who are around me. I'm a hero to a lot of different people, and I have influence and I have influence on my campus, and I have influence in my church, and I have influence in my community, and I have influence around my friends, and you have to understand something. You're not going to make me look like a fool doing something that sounds foolish. But my question to each and every one of you men in here is this: is your pride something that is keeping you from your destiny? See, the thought of dipping, when it says that he had to go and wash himself in the waters, it takes on this term of, it's not just a simple washing, but it's more of a trusting in. To continue to trust in God. Can I continue to trust in him, and knowing that every time that I dip down, that when I come back up, I know I'm going to find healing. But I know that I have to eliminate and I have to rid myself of that pride that time and time again tries to remind me that I am better than what the solution is. I don't care who you are in this room. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care what kind of prestige you have. I don't care where you go. I don't care how high you fly. I don't care the audiences you talk to. At the end of the day, we are all public heroes to somebody, but we all have our own private problems. Those things that are very difficult for us to talk about. Those things that we don't want anybody else to know about. Those things that as married men, you do not want your wife to find out, because if she did, she may not think you are the hero that you are. Those things that you don't want for your children to ever even become like you. Why would I want my kids to be like me? I would rather them emulate what they see in front of me when I'm able to post it for the world to see. Kids, emulate this, but I can't show you what I'm hiding underneath my armor. It's the superhero complex. The superhero, this hero syndrome that we have. This hero syndrome where we're trying to save the world for everybody else. But for many of us men, we understand the superhero syndrome comes with the weight of it, and the weight of it can be difficult. Oh, the weight of responsibility is a very difficult, a very hard thing. Even the weight of influence is a very difficult and hard thing. I talk to men and I tell them, don't ever covet, don't ever be jealous of another man's influence, because the greater amount of influence, the greater level of responsibility to withhold it. The greater amount of people that you have who follow you only means that you're just going to have a louder voice of criticism. That's just what happens. That's what comes with it. We all try to aspire to reach that place of there, to get there, because we think that there is so wonderful, to have that or to have what other people have, not realizing that although the pictures look good and although the stuff looks good and although the stuff drives good and also the bank account looks good, there is still something about that man that he's hiding. I had to learn a long time ago that rich didn't necessarily mean happy. Now, growing up in a very small town in Newton, Mississippi, I grew up in a double-wide trailer. I had a pond out back. I had a garden out back. When we wanted fish, I didn't go to the store. It was 7 miles away from where we lived. I went out back. I went in the pond, and we caught a catfish, hung him up on the thing, skinned him, cut him, ate him. That was how I grew up. I went outside. We planted the tomatoes. We ate the tomatoes. I went outside. At 4:30 in the morning, I'd take the bottle. I would throw up the formula for the cows. I go in. I feed the calves. Throughout the fall and throughout the winter, spring, took them to the butcher. That's what we ate. We killed the deer. That's how we did it. And I always envied everybody who I would see who seemed like they had more, because I thought rich meant better. I thought you lived in the bigger house. That must mean that you must be more, that you must have more. And I feel intimidated because I don't have what you have, until I finally realized that now the rich are just as insecure as the poor. It's interesting because, see, here in the city of Atlanta, well, I'll say metro Atlanta surrounding areas, places that are not far from where we are now, some of the richest zip codes have some of the worst opiate crises. They're popping pills. Now, you would think that they should be happy. $2, $3, $4 million houses. Can have any car they want. But they still popping pills. Surgeons, doctors, players, you name it. They're heroes to people. The world was just mourning over the loss of celebrities who've committed suicide. And I hope that the church is waking up to realize that although we can pray over mental disease and we can pray that God would heal them and pray that the enemy or the demons will leave them, that there's still a such thing as being able to sit down and talk with somebody to say, you need some therapy. But it's the pride that's just within us that tells us, I would never do that. I'll never forget the day my wife looked at me after an angry outburst in my house when I took the lamp and I ripped it in two because I was so mad. And she looked at me and she said, you need therapy. And I looked at her and I said, I will never do it. I don't need help. If anybody needs help, you are the one who needs help. I don't need help. And I put the blame all on her. I thought you were my problem. I was just fine before I got you. And here you are, perfect Penelope, coming into my life. And you're bringing all these things of how great you are. And great, you just showed me just how bad of a person I am. I still want to be the public hero I was. And when I was a single man, it was easier for me to hide my private problems. But now that I have to lay here next to you, you see things about me that I don't want anybody else to see. And I don't want the solutions that you bring. You telling me I need to talk to somebody. And I'm telling you as a single man, I was just fine talking to nobody but myself. And I ripped the lamp and we have this argument back and forth. And she looks at me and she says, I can't do this. I'm leaving you. And as she stood in front of, as she grabbed her stuff, I slammed the door and I said, you can't go anywhere. And she looks at me and she says, Cornelius, I am leaving you. And I said, you can't leave me. And I break down and she says, why are you like this? And I said, because if you leave me, then I'm going to be by myself. And I don't care how strong of a man you are in this room. There is one thing that is innate on the inside of all of us, and that is that it is not good for a man to be alone. You want to bring a strong man down to his knees? Put him in isolation. Put him in a place where he can't win. Put him in a place where he can't compete. Put him in a place where he can't battle for a fight for the beauty who stands in front of him. Put him in a place where you discipline him all the way down with law, so much so that he loses his own identity. Put him in a place that puts him in a chamber of religion so that he cannot break out of it with purpose. Put him in a place of isolation and you'll break down even the strongest of dictators. break you down to such a point that you would hang yourself, break you down to such a point that you would go and buy the same gun and the one bullet that you need to blow your brains right out your head, because it is never good for a man to be alone. And I could only imagine looking in this context and looking through the eyes of Naaman and seeing how great of a man that I am as I stand in the mirror with my armor on. But as soon as I take my badge off, as soon as I rip away all of my accomplishments and all of my achievements and everything I've been able to do and everything I've been able to have and everything I've been able to become and everything I want to become, all of my dreams, all of my hopes, all of my fears, everything that I have, I rip it all down. And once it all falls to the ground and in my nakedness, I finally realize I have a private problem that I don't want anybody else to see. And then I look at everybody else around me and I think, maybe they don't have a problem. So now I have to be more macho. Okay, I'm not going to deal with the private problem. I'll just work harder at covering it up so that my brothers around me don't really know who I am outside of my armor. And we think that although we're in a group of men, that we found community and fellowship. Oh, it's not that simple. The depths of fellowship is not found just in a community gathering. It's found when the David meets the Jonathan. And unlike the Naaman, they're willing to rip off the layers that hides the private problem. As souls are knit together because the men are able to see each other for who they really are. And that's how I can hold you accountable. I don't want to hold you accountable to just you writing your book. That means absolutely nothing to me, although it may mean everything to you. The book is just the outcome. It's just the thing that comes out of you being. But I'm more interested in who you are, not what you are going to do. Because if I can know who you are, I want to hold you accountable to the very presence and the precise moment of who you are, because it is in that, in you becoming and who you be, that now brings out who you are and what you're supposed to do. But if I don't know who you are, all you are is just a list of accomplishments. You've done a lot of things. You have more degrees than any man in this room. But how great is all those things if you go back to your house in your own isolation and you sleeping on the couch because you realize I still have a private problem, but I am such a public success. I had to face this myself. I never forget sitting down in a closet praying to God after I had preached, and I thought, God, I gave such a great sermon. And I get down in the closet, and I'm there, and I'm praying, and God speaks to me, and he says, why do you preach sermons that even you can't obey? Because, see, it's easier to preach a sermon telling other people that they should pray when you don't. Because they would never expect that the public hero would be one that is hiding the private problem. And the private problem that I had was that I did not follow through on the very message that I was telling everybody else to do. Because it's easier for you to talk about something that you yourself don't do. It's easier for you to tell a wife or tell a girlfriend or tell a fiance that you must respect me when I won't reciprocate the action back to you. It's easier for us to give orders to somebody else because that is the commander, the leader within us, that we can now tell somebody else what they need to do. But it's very difficult for us to be able to for anybody to tell us what we should do and tell us how we should change. That pride, it comes up real quick. Don't you know who I am? Oh, you must don't know my credentials. Have you checked my social media? I have a check next to my name. I'm valuable. Have you not known? I've traveled the whole world. I've preached all over the world. I've sung for 60,000 people. You don't know how many books I've sold. You know how many records I've sold. This is great. This is what I do. I'm famous. I guess people know me. They just do. That's great. But what are you hiding? Where are you hiding? What are you hiding? 12 preachers in the room. What you hiding? I go to a preacher's conference and I sit up there and it's like a peeing contest. They come up to me and they say, hey, how you doing? You a pastor? Yeah, pastor. Where's your church? It's in the metro Atlanta area. First question they ask is, how big is your church? How many members you're running? Men love to measure everything. How many members you got? Why does that matter? Well, I was just interested. No, you wanted to know so you can measure your success by mine. Because you somehow think that somehow gathering a lot of people together must make you a success. When you don't realize that Jesus took 12 men and turned the whole world upside down. I don't need the mass. I just need enough. I need quality. Anybody can come up with a great system and get quantity. I'm after quality because with quality can now affect quantity. But that's what you got. That's how many people you run. How many services you got? Oh man, you got 2. I got 6, man. I had one guy who did that to me. He said, how many services do you have? I said, I have 1. He said, man, I have 5. I looked at him, I said, well, you must be tired. Now, what are you hiding? I'm sorry, Naaman, don't lead with your armor. Are you going to lead with your credentials? Oh, you don't know. I'm Naaman. I was single-handedly responsible for helping Syria defeat Israel. Do you know who I am? It's like, okay, great, but you're a leper. You're a leper. You don't even deserve to be in the position that you are in. In fact, you should be an outcast with the rest of the lepers. But it's only by the fact that the king adores you and he reverences you. It's only by the fact of your great abilities that you are where you are. And I don't want you to ever forget that you are and you have what you have because God seeks to humble you. Remember now, it is those who are prideful, they are humbled. That's how God does it. But those who are humble, the scripture says they shall be exalted. But as men, we lead from our pride. And we say, no, this is who I am. I cannot let you see this. Because this part of me is the part that I'm still trying to hold on to. Because if you see this, you may not think that I am as great as I am. That I'm not the best doctor that you thought I was. I'm not the best dentist. I'm not the best player. I'm not the best thinker. I'm not the best author. Because you don't know that I have to hide behind my titles. Because I'm insecure and insufficient in myself. Isn't it something that we can have such great answers for everybody else, but we can't fix our own problem? And if you're past your 5th birthday, then I know you know exactly what your problem is. Every man in here has one. Every man in here has one. And isn't it something that in the church we have to wait until there's a great fall from one of our heroes? We have to wait until there's a fall from one of our heroes in the church, pastoring for 30 years, and all of a sudden we find out what your private problem was. But isn't the church the place of the community where we can all come together to be healed? And I oftentimes wondered, how is it that a public hero, someone you were able to amass 45,000 people, members of your church? Out of 45,000 members, there wasn't at least one who you could show to say, I have a private problem? Out of 45,000 people, can I just imagine maybe 15,000, maybe 20,000 were men. Out of 20,000 men, there wasn't at least one that you could say, I have a private problem. Can I take my armor off for just a moment because I'm tired of being a public hero for everybody else? I'm tired of the weight of the influence of it all because all I hear is the criticism over here. Because let me tell you something, the same people who shout your name today will be the same people who will shout, crucify you tomorrow. The weight of it's a burden to me. And I wondered, out of 45,000 members, 20,000, there were none who would say you have a private problem and would say you need to go and you need to dip in the waters. And it may mean, brother, that you have to go back to a place that you feel like you have defeated. It may mean that you have to go back to a place that you feel like you've conquered. It may feel like you have to go back to a place because that place That place is a place of humility. You have to go back to a place and humble yourself to a people that you have conquered, to do a thing that you don't think is up to your standard and up to your value. But he's saying you have to dip. You got to get low. You got to get low. And I'm telling you something, fellas. You may hear this. You may think, well, I hear what you're saying. It sounds good, but that's not really for me right now where I'm at in my life. All we're doing right now for you is just waiting out the clock. That's all we're doing. Because when life gets hard enough, you'll get low enough. I finally realized, people say, I don't know what gets men to church. I don't know why it is that men feel like they don't need it. And I finally realized one of the main things is this. It's not that we have to have good marketing strategies to get them there. I know one thing that'll get a man on his knees to confess himself before God. I know one thing. I know one thing that will make a man cry out to God and wail out to him. Although he hasn't cried in 15 years. I know one thing that'll bring a man down to his knees. That's life. Hardship, difficulty, trials. When you finally realize your leprosy and you realize that you can't fix you because you've been fixing everybody else. You fix mama. You help mama. You had to help them with the finances. You had to help grandma and them move their house. You have to be a hero for everybody else. You got to pay these bills, and they call on you to do this. And you've been a superhero for everybody else. And when you finally realize you can't fix your own dilemma, oh, you'll come. I've had men around the world who look at me as I preach over in Abu Dhabi, and this man looked at me and he said, I will never confess Jesus. I looked at him, I said, oh, well, either you will bow your knees voluntarily, or you will have them broken by the rod of correction. But either way, they'll bow. Life will bow them. Because when you finally get to shouting and get to ranting at whatever God that you think you serve, and he doesn't speak back to you, when you finally get into a place of isolation long enough and you realize that all the things that you were rubbing on and all the stuff that you were sleeping next to and all the stuff that you was popping and all the stuff you was drinking and all the stuff you was snorting and all the stuff you was hitting, when you realize that none of those things can heal you, I guarantee you will do anything you have to do to find an answer to cure you of your leprosy. Again, I ask you, is it pride that's keeping you from your destiny? Is it pride? Pride. I don't want anybody to see me. I know men, they go out and they buy expensive things just so they can seem better than what they are. They hide behind the clothes, hide behind the stuff, hide behind the money, hide behind the success. You don't realize you still got the problem. The problem hasn't went away. I believe that every man in this room, you have the ability to touch nations. You have the ability to transform lives. You have the ability to be able to teach and preach fire down from heaven. But is it your pride that keeps you from going in that place? Is it your pride that keeps you from making that confession? Is it your pride that keeps you in that place of bondage? Because it's a place of bondage. I don't care how successful you think you are, how successful you think you can become. Is it a place of pride? Have you grown so full of yourself that you left no room for God? It's the pride. It's the pride. I've had to ask myself this question. I've had to ask myself, where in my life am I so prideful that I don't want to show my own leprosy? I've had to deal with my own levels of insufficiency and insecurity. It's not easy for me to do this. People may assume it is, but it's not. I'll be completely honest with you. It's not easy for me to do this. I hate public speaking. I don't like speaking in front of people. It's just not something I like to do. As a kid, I stuttered so bad I could barely get a word out. This is not something I wanted to do. It's not something that I planned on doing, but it's something that I do because it's just like, I don't want to be the prideful kid. And it could be in that place of humiliation, that place that you say, I don't want to go. I don't want to do that, God. Because you're still trying to do something else. Because you feel like something else may be the better path for you. And God's saying, no, brother, if you just go to the place where I'm telling you to and do the silly thing. Do the thing that you feel like you shouldn't do. But that's the thing that I really want you to do. And it's not just the leprosy that I'll cure, but it's your heart that I'll change. And then by changing yours, through your influence, we're able to now change nations. But if I can't get to your heart first, I'm afraid of the influence that you may have over the nation. So I have to silence your mouth. You have no other choice but to keep working around in circles. That's all you can do right now because I can't trust you to be able to minister to the other people because you can't even follow the simple things. This isn't anything deep. It's nothing deep. It's just the pride in us. The pride in us. It's that Naaman that is in us. We don't want to do the simple thing. It's a hard thing. It's not an easy thing to look at yourself and say, I need help. I'll never forget the first time I sat down in therapy because I knew I needed help. I remember the first time I sat down with a boss who treated me like trash. He looked at me my first week on the job. He looked at me and he said, I said something. He looked at me. He said, you're nothing. You're a nobody. You don't speak to people. You stand there. You're a statue. That's all you do. And I remember going home in that day and looking in my bathroom, in my bathroom mirror, and looking in the mirror, and I was pointing at myself, and I had to keep telling myself with tears coming out of my eyes, you are somebody. You are somebody. You are somebody. And I remember just standing there over and over again with tears coming out of my eyes. You are somebody. You are somebody. And God will use you. And you just keep going. You are not the words that he said. Because oftentimes it's not the words that we hear that affects us. Rather, it's the words that we believe. You can hear a lot of words. But when you finally believe the words that they said over you, that's when it becomes a part of your identity. I couldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe it. No, I am somebody. And I went back into work that next day, and he looked at me and he said, how you doing? I said, I am somebody. He looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, well, yesterday you said that I wasn't anybody, but I had to let you know that I am somebody. He looked at me and he said, well, good job. I'm glad that you know you're somebody. Now let's get to work. And I thought, that's all you're going to say to me? That's it? I've been battling insecurity all of my life trying to figure out if I am somebody. And the last thing you do is tell me that I'm not. And the last thing I tell you is that I am somebody. And the last thing you tell me is good. Let's get to work. What are you trying to do? But the simple thing for me in that moment was look in that mirror. And I am somebody. But I remember sitting in that therapist's office. I remember crossing my leg, folding my arms. He looks at me and he says, what are you doing? I said, I'm here to talk. And he said, well, I'm here to listen. He said, why did you cross your legs and fold your arms? I said, I'm just waiting for you to tell me what you want to talk about. He says, Cornelius, do you want to talk to me? I said, no. He said, why do you feel like you're here? I said, I don't know. He said, well, obviously, if you walk into this place, that you're here for a reason. I said, well, I guess I am. Now, you help me. You help me, Alicia. Come out here and wave your hand and just, God Jehovah can just heal me. You tell me, Alicia. Aren't you the therapist? Aren't you the one? Aren't you the professional? You help me. By the time the session was over, I didn't want to leave. Because I had somebody who was able to look at me in my face and tell me, I see your leprosy. I see your leprosy. What do you want me to do, man? I want you to go talk to your wife. Hold up. What you want me to tell her? I want you to tell your wife you're sorry. So, hold on, sorry for what? Because if I apologize to her, you apologize to your wife, it goes a long way, because now she's trying to figure out what you're apologizing about, and now this could be a whole nother issue. What am I apologizing about? This could go really, really bad very, very quickly. This is not a good thing, and you're a professional here. I'm trusting you. He says, I want you to go and I want you to apologize to your wife. And I thought, this is not happening. But if he would have asked me to do a hard thing, would not have I done it? But he asked me to do a simple thing. I went home. I looked at my wife. I grabbed my wife and I said, babe, I'm sorry. This woman looked at me, those beautiful green eyes of hers, and she started crying. And she said, baby, I love you. That was the first moment in our marriage that I actually felt like I was loved. Not because I didn't know she didn't love me, but because I was at a vulnerable place where I was allowing for her to love me. Because I had so much self-hate in my own heart that I didn't think it was right for anybody to truly love me. I didn't like myself. I was strong publicly. I looked like I had it all together publicly. I wore the European cut suits because that's what you do. You put on the dress up on the outside, but you don't deal with what's underneath it. And isn't that the malady of our world today, especially our generation? We dress the part, but we don't have the character to back it up. And I was a great success in my own head, but I couldn't even get my own marriage to work. And then we have a kid. And y'all can come up here, the band. We have a kid, and my son, he's born, and I was afraid to tell anybody this. But I was afraid to be a father. I was terrified. I wanted to be a father. I prayed about being a father. I remember fantasizing and thinking about it and visualizing what it would be like to be a father. And there I was holding my son, and I was terrified. Because I wasn't sure exactly what kind of man I would be. Because to this boy, I wanted to be his public hero. But I knew there were things about me that I would never want him to know. And there were things about me that I would never want him to emulate. And then I also knew that this boy will go on his own journey of masculinity, where his pride will get in the way of him dealing with his private problems. And I remember weeping before God in the hospital room, asking him, how, God, do I raise this boy that he doesn't be like me? I don't want him to have any amount of public success if his private problem continues to eat away at him. Because the success that he has is going to only be tarnished by the problem. Because the one thing you may not want to realize is that while that problem is private now, the day may come where it's brought into the light. And when it is, it's humiliating. I didn't want you to know my struggle, man. I didn't want you to know what I was hiding. I didn't want you to know I was raped, molested, abused. I mean, those are women things. Like, women go through that. Like, why that shouldn't have happened to me. I thought in my head, God, like, why would it happen to me? Because, God, if I didn't have this leprosy, you know how much greater I would be for you? God, if I didn't have this private problem, you know how much more I could do for you? Why don't you just take this one thing away? Wave your hand, Alicia. Help me. But you asked me to do a simple thing. You just want me to get low. To remove my pride long enough. God, I can't do this on my own. I got to trust you with this. I got to confess this thing. I got to bring this thing out into the light. Because the longer I keep it, the longer it ruins me. God, I don't want to deal with the humiliation of this. It's going to bring me down, God. If people found out that I had this problem, you know how people talk? I don't want them to gossip about me. I don't want my parents to feel like they failed me. I don't want my wife to look at me differently. I don't want my kids to. I don't want my students to think I'm a screw up. I don't want my employees to know that I don't even know what I'm doing. I've just been able to just make some good decisions here or there. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of winging it. All of you in here are public heroes to somebody, somewhere. Somebody looks up to you. You're the hero. The heroes aren't Batman and Superman. Those aren't the heroes. We're the everyday heroes who are walking around in our communities. We have our own kryptonite. We have our own demonic story that is told over us like that. We've all felt abandoned, like the Dark Knight. We've all felt like the good guy that was burned by the bad guy, who now has to wear two faces. I was good, but now the good guy, he burned me. So now I'm just two-faced. You're all public heroes, but there's a private problem you're hiding. Tonight, as we end this, as we close this, I want to be able to pray for you. I want to pray with you. I just don't want you to leave from this place. I don't want you to leave from this room. Your wife isn't here. Your girlfriend isn't here. Whoever it is, they're not here in this moment. They're not here. And I'm dealing with you as the man. I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to the brother sitting next to you. I'm talking to you. Even though I can't lock eyes with each and every one of you, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to your specific self. And the reason why I make this so individualistic is because with each and every one of you individuals, with each and every one of you heroes in the room, if you could deal with the private problem, just imagine how it could affect a nation. It's not just the changing of the skin. You think you're asking God to just remove the temptation, to remove the thoughts, to remove the desire. And you don't realize, son, I'm going after the heart. I'm going after the issue. I'm dealing with the root. If you're in this place and you say, you know what? I'm a private hero. I got a public problem. I just want you to do something so bold. I just want you to just come down here. I desire no emotionalism in this moment. Nothing that just stimulates the mind but doesn't pierce the heart. God, these are your sons, called by your name. You put a mighty word in them. And God, whatever their private problem is, I pray that they humble themselves enough to dip low, to humble themselves to go low, in full submission unto you, to confess that thing, oh God, and be willing to pay everything they got to go and seek the healing. God, some of these men, they need to talk to somebody. They need to talk to somebody. They need somebody to just deal with the roots. And I pray that they humble themselves enough to do that. I pray, God, that you send wise counselors and wise men along their path that can be able to speak to their individual situations, that speaks to that leprosy, that speaks to that thing that we don't want to talk about, that speaks to why it is that they want to watch the pornography, that speaks to the sexual identity issues that are going on in their heart, not knowing what they like or who they like or what they want, but still trying to carry the macho mentality, to speak to that issue of pride that tells them that since they can't be the great star that they thought they were, that maybe they don't know what else they could be. God, that you speak to those men who feel insufficient and insecure as fathers. That leprosy. I pray, God, that they won't fight and they won't battle alone. It's just not good for a man to be alone. If they're willing to find comfort in a band of brothers, find strength in their unity, a place of true transparency, a place of openness, a place of confession, and a place of prayer. That's the vision, God, you gave me of the Man Cave Society, where men can come together without pretense, without title, without anything, and just sit down together and just be men, just talk, laugh, holler, scream, yell, whatever. Just be men. We can watch a game 1 minute and we can do Bible study the next. Just be men. No pretense. Not how big our church is, not how much money we make. I don't care about job titles. God is just dealing with who we are. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter. So God, I pray over your sons. And as we sing to you, God, I just pray your precious shalom. I pray, oh shalom. Oh Jehovah, I pray that you just rest that peace on them and in them. I pray, God, for those men right now, for their families, that they're seeking after some sort of provision. I pray, Jehovah Jireh, that you show up exactly when they need it. God, I thank you. I thank you that you are still providing all of our needs, even to this day. Even for us who finds ourselves in deficits in many areas, I thank you, God, that we learn from our deficits. We learn from our failures. But I thank you, God, that we don't end in those places, but we're growing past them. I thank you, God, you're raising us up to be quality men, worth emulating, men who are able to leave a legacy behind, to create a strong lineage. Our children's children, that they shall be strong because of the foundation that we're laying right now. That whatever generationally has come down from the top to us, I thank you, God, that it is with us that is broken. The alcoholism that took my father, it won't take me. The The many marriages that took my father, they won't take me. Nah, this stops. This stops. This stops. This stops. This stops. This stops. It stops with me. I'm going to be a great man, and I'm going to take this responsibility. I'm going to fight this good fight of faith. I'm going to fight for my marriage. I'm going to fight for my kids. I'm going to fight for my community. I'm going to fight for my nation. I'm going to fight for what I know is right. I'm going to fight for righteousness' sake. I'm going to fight for the gospel message. I'm going to fight for those things which are pure, which are lovely, which are of good report. God, I'm going to fight for those things as a great commander. And I'm going to trust you as I continue to go low, that you'll touch and you'll heal this leprosy. And even, God, if it feels like the temptation comes back for me to even assume that the leprosy has now assumed itself upon my body again, then I will not allow for the enemy to convince me that temptation means that I have returned back to bondage. But rather, you have already created a way of escape. Because who you set free is free indeed. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. So, God, as we sing to you, I pray that you accept our worship. I pray that it's just a sweet aroma, that it enters into your court, that you accept this offering of our sacrifice to you. I pray that you accept this. And I pray that you rest down upon us only in a way in which you can.